So, so everyone knows, I'm a little bit delayed. Um, can you guys hear me? So just so everyone knows, I'm going to be recording the teaching portion of this, which is why I have to do it this specific way, because the Q&A is going to only be for everybody who's here. So I'm going to teach, and then I'm going to like drop in with each of you, and like if there's like something you want to go into, something you want to talk about, we can do that. All right. So I would love to hear like before I start, like um what, first of all, just to have everyone drop in, like what called you to be here today, or what inspired you to be here today, and just write it in the comments. Mm. And like you might not have something really specific, but I muted myself. I'm unmuted. Hmm. Beautiful. Is this Lex? Hold on. I gotta see. There's five participants. Is anyone not on video? Oh, Lex, my love, can you be on video when you get like when you're ready so I can see your beautiful face? Hmm. Beautiful. All right. Thank you so much, guys, for sharing. And um, I love this because there's like this mix of new and old people, or like people that I've worked with before, and um it just feels like this is a really new, and like there's been for me this huge clearing of like any way that I felt any kind of ownership over this thing, because it's so massive, this thing that I've felt that I'm here to steward. And so now it's so funny because um it's like I had to drop everything, and like who I thought I was and what I thought I was doing, and I did not realize that it was in order to bring this body of work through. So yeah, so it's really beautiful, like everyone sharing, like there's like a few different threads, and it's really interesting because I wanted to create this space, but I feel like there's so many threads that come through in this space. And so um there's just this kind of some background. And for those who don't know, I don't actually feel like this story is really that important to me anymore. I'm going to stop my video real quick and then turn it back on because it's wonky. um so just as like some background, I, I grew up with a father who was so fucking brilliant and so creative and just like this really like bright, fiery soul. Um, and like my relationship with men and with the masculine was like actually pretty domineering. Like I could not trust my father to hold me, and so I like dominated him. And I know that that sounds really like I actually don't think I've ever phrased it that way, but that was how I learned to adapt to masculine power was manipulation and I mean that's not the whole thing, right? But like when you're working with a masculine who can't hold you, what do, right? What is your sort of coping strategy or mechanism for that? So, I mean, that was my whole thing, even in my 20s. That was my way of like feeling my power was by domineering men and by, seducing men. And I mean, I don't think those men were victims either. Like I think that this is something that a lot of the men who come to me very often have been on the other end and they've like been the sort of counterpart to this dominant energy. And it's actually something I teach men how to alchemize because there's a shadow to that and there's a ego death to that being like consumed by the feminine energy. And so the thing that I think is one of the biggest things that I have to teach here, we have this idea of patriarchy, right? And then we have these ideas of matriarchy, and they're very separate, and they're seen as like two separate things. And this entire paradigm that we have lacks an incredible amount of awareness of our history because our history is so ancient that there's history that hasn't been written. And where is it written? It's written in the female body. Like it's literally in our DNA. Because before we had the written language, right? If you've ever heard about the book, The Alphabet and the Goddess, like before we had the written language, we had it in our DNA. Our memory span and our capacity to remember things was so much more vast than our current culture. Like essentially we've put all of that into the internet. We've like downloaded it all into the internet, which is its own form of like brilliance. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but because of the downloading our consciousness onto an external hard drive, we've lacked the capacity and the ability to trust the fucking like I actually don't like comparing ourselves to computers. We're like so much more than that. But like our ability to translate and communicate information directly from like the cloud, the field of consciousness. And so that's why people are obsessed with like peer-reviewed studies and they're obsessed with data and they're obsessed with like what some Harvard professor, who's getting paid off has to say about X, Y, and Z so much that you can like see information being manipulated all the time. Like you can't trust the external anymore. You really can't. Like if you try to rely on the external, in our reality, you will get fucked. You'll like really be fucked. So it's like we have to, as a survival mechanism, even like it's not even just like spiritual. It's like, no, you bitches want to survive. You need to like really tap in to the intelligence of creation. And so we have to get back not only to the body, but we have to get back to the direct access. Um, and so this for the last like year, probably longer, sometimes things take a long time to download because you're like, what? like, like, or you're like, want it to be concrete, but it's not. And so it takes time. And so for a while, I was like, I have a new creation story. Like I, like this thing is coming through, and I don't think I thought when I first got it that it was a new creation story, but I was like, there's history missing. Like, and I felt like that for a while. Like people are talking, even in these goddess books. I have like all the goddess books, and I'm always really disappointed because I'm like, wait, where's that part? I'm like, they didn't do that part. And it's because, again, that like hyper fixation on what we can only see and physically like study versus like the information that's actually in our bodies. And like we know, I don't really do past life work anymore, but like if you remember your past lives, there's a reason. Like if you remember, if you have memories, if you have downloads, that's because that information from that time is supposed to come through and inform and teach you something. And so it's not just like fun and woo woo. It's like, no, the universe is literally trying to give you information from the field so you can survive. And when I say survive, I'm not talking about like, I think when we talk about survival, it can be like trauma based. I'm talking about like just being able to continue our legacies as humans. And and so so the key here really is to have a new fucking story. Like, yes, we can do all the relationship pattern work. Yes, we can like go through and just be like, okay, this is what I'm doing. But like, we've really forgotten as humans, we're actually quite simple. And we don't require a lot of like mental, like control. Like that actual shit doesn't really create effective, rapid change. And so I've just come to realize, like, by writing the story, I began writing it and I was going to post it publicly. And I was like, nah, someone is going to steal this. It's too good. Like, someone is going to claim my work and then it's going to be one of those stories. And I don't want to do that. And so, um, and so I just thought that what would be feel better for me is to kind of give you guys a little bit of the gist of this story during this work, like this transmission. And it's possible I'll put it online, but I just feel like it needs its own container or something. Like it's really important. It's like sometimes we take things for granted because, oh, I don't have this degree. And so there's not like this whole ego thing around it. But it's like we have to become stewards of our work, especially when we're in public spheres online and be like, oh no, this shit is like valuable. This is gold and I need to protect this. So not everything needs to be free. And that's something that I just write so much and offer so much online. Like I didn't really understand the value until now. So sort of like I'm figuring out how to create containers for like certain things. Like I don't know how to create a container for this story. Maybe I'll get an illustrator. Maybe I'll make it a book. I don't know. It's really new. So um but like in this story, there's this idea that like men and women came in at the same fucking time. I was talking to my friend who is like a radical feminist, and it's so funny that we're friends because I'm like, how did I? But it makes sense, but it doesn't. It's like, because she's a butch lesbian, and she like hates men, and I think it's so funny that we're. I literally hung out with her like 2 nights ago, but we have um unexpected allies on this path sometimes. And so if I were to just like take that at face value and judge it and be like, we're different, that I couldn't see her medicine because she 100% has medicine for me. Um, and so, one of the things that she really relayed to me is like our biology as women is so complex. Like it is so nuanced and complex and like I mean, it is robust. Like our system is robust. There's a reason that there's sort of this like joke about how like when men get sick, they're just babies because it's like our biology is so and I really do not want to create some kind of like hierarchy here that's egoic. I just want to talk about the biology and what it translates on an energetic level. So what I'm saying is like, we have this robust system as women because we literally are responsible for bringing creation through the world. Like it has the reason, it has a responsibility to it. It has a debt to it, right? Like having a period each month, that is a debt that we then get tons of wisdom and power from. And so there's no like better than here. It's just to understand we've this idea of the second sex. It's like, yeah, what do you do when you know that someone is really fucking powerful? You teach them that they are lesser than, powerless, they're infantile, right? This is what you do if you want to keep someone from their power. And so um to really take responsibility for that is to recognize and to return to this ancient karma, right? I talked about relationship karma a little bit, and like I want to talk about this like ancient story about the goddess and the consort, because it's like, where the fuck did that go? I haven't even read about it. I'm like, what the fuck? Why in all of these books I've never fucking heard the word consort? Why is there no son? Why is it just grown ass men all of a sudden dominating women? You think that that shit just happened? No. Where did he come from? Where did the man come from? Right? And so this creation story that started coming through was about the relationship between the goddess and the consort and how it started and where it got distorted. And where it got distorted that a lot of women don't want to admit, because then they'd have to sit with their responsibility, is the place where the goddess birthed her son, and then she did not want to make him a god. She wanted to keep the power for herself. She wanted him to only be a servant. Oh, yeah. So a consort is basically a partner. It just really means partner. But if you ever look at the images of the goddess with the consort, she's essentially, he's like a child. This is where you get the image of Mary and Jesus. That is the origins of that image. And so the consort is essentially in its origins a child. It's a little baby boy. And very often when I do this work with women, what I walk them through is imagining whatever man that they are like really having a hard time with, to go back to that origin of seeing him as a little child, right? To see him as a child so you can remember his innocence. Because where did man just go off and start trying to create without the feminine? Where did he start doing that? When he didn't feel seen, when he was not priestess, right? When I say priestess as like a doing, what I'm talking about is guiding the masculine through the recognition of his power, which can only come through feminine stewardship. Men cannot access their true power without feminine holding. And you will have lots of men who would literally kill me for, I mean, I don't know, I'm not going to get killed in this lifetime, but you know what I mean? Like that is like a deathly fucking thing to say. But it's also a deathly thing for me to say, hey, women, we actually need men, right? Like they're both really, really, they challenge this matrix that is sort of our game as men and women to get out of. So it's on both ends, right? But this is why I do work with men, because if a man does not have feminine priestessship, his shit will not be right. I mean, and I know this sounds so like really like, maybe not polarizing, but like definite, but I feel so passionately about it that it feels so definite to me. Like, I know there are men doing great work in the world. Like, I know that. And there's a reason that there was an ancient priestesshood and priestessing of the masculine. There is a reason, because when that shit is not held, it gets really distorted and wonky. However, when you have women who have forgotten not only that the priestesshood is a part of their makeup. I mean, not every woman is. That's the thing too. Like, I feel like if you feel called to this work, you have that priestess lineage of the masculine. Even if you feel like your relationships are fucked up with men. My relationships are fucked up with men. I'm like, how like never had a relationship last longer than like a month or two. I mean, I'm not speaking to this from like, and I figured it out, because it's really not about the partnership. It's really not about any of the sort of like how it looks. It's just about the energetic codes. And Lauren had said this to me, and I really appreciate it. It's just the codes. If you got the codes, you got the codes. You're meant to carry the codes. So you don't worry about your shit, right? Sometimes we need service to like actually blow through some of the shit we think is so big. Like I came through, this came through yesterday or like the day before, where I was like, I'm kind of bored of like my dad's death story. Like I've told this story like so many times, and like it is significant and it's like important, and also like the drama of it and the intensity of it. Like, let's do something new. Like, let's take the energy now. And it's just because it's been alchemized. It's not like I'm judging my past self. It just doesn't have as much like oomph to me anymore. And so that's why I think now it's like there's this new iteration that which is really coming through right now, which is this, like this, the clarity of this thing. And so, but I do think it really was important for me to steward my dad's death, because it was a form of priestessing, and it was how I began the path of like becoming a teacher. Cause I was like, I mean, it's like, this is the thing about Dharma. You just see something. If you see something, like if the universe gives you a peek behind the veil, you are now responsible for carrying that. And I was so victimized by all the things that I saw. I mean, and I talked about my journey to Taiwan when I was 17 and like how expansive it was. And I shut that shit down when I got back, because I was like, I don't want to be responsible for holding that. Like, I don't want to be responsible for like world peace, or like the understanding that like, we are no different, because our cultures are just sort of like costumes. So anyway, that's a different subject, but it's like when you have an awareness, it becomes your job then to share it. And this is why, like, I feel like I overshare online, and I've really thought about like, okay, like, can I not do, but I just feel like there comes a point where like it all kind of has to be out in the open anyway, because it's going to get like opened anyway, and it's not really me anyway, it's like the collective. So whatever problem I'm having is other people are having too. So it's kind of it has become very unpersonal for me to share my life. um so I'm like more interested in the rapid evolution of consciousness than I am in like how I'm seen. So that's how I think sometimes we need that balance to get out of our own fucking way, because I know so many people, and even people I've worked with, where it's like they have so much potency and power, and they just, it's like I don't want to take responsibility for actually holding that out in the world, even though it could support me and create things. And you know what I mean? It's like you have to start taking your dharma very seriously. I really, really believe that. Like the we have like the big ego and the little ego, the big ego that's like, I'm so important, and the little ego that's like, I'm not important. Mine has more so been like, well, it's kind of, they all, they go together, I think, in different ways. Like they swing. Um, but it's like there is something about audacity that I feel like is really important for me to communicate with people. Like having the audacity to be who you are, even when you're imperfect, even when you have shit to work on, even if you're messy, even if people don't like you, even if you fuck up. Like I can't tell you how many family members like don't like have a beef with me because of something I wrote on social media. And it's like, okay, well, Love you. Let me know when you get over that because it had nothing to do with you. So you just have to fucking do it. It's like that Nike saying, just fucking do it. Like, stop thinking you are so um I don't know, it's actually a form of arrogance in a way to like not be who you are. It's like, no, like everyone, it's like, who cares? Like, do you think the whole world revolves around you? No. If someone gets mad at you in the internet, it doesn't matter. The world doesn't revolve around you. There's something more important and bigger going on. So I'm saying this because I literally, guys, like I think like no, 2 weeks ago, I was like, I'm quitting. I'm done. I'm not doing my business for a year. I'm gonna get a sales job and make tons of money and then travel. And my friend Max like hit me up and he didn't know about any of this. He hit me up and he never hits me up. Like we do like group things together, but I never see him like in person. And he was at my birthday party. And he has like very much the priest archetype, which is like so special, but essentially like this man has been has stewarded the feminine, right? The protection of the temple before. And so he's sort of my ally in that way. And he sat me down and he was like asking me questions about my work. And I was very irritated. And I was like, I'm not doing that right now. And I was like, it's not like, I just did not want to answer his questions. And he's like, but Taylor, like this is really important. Like, I don't know why you don't want to tell me about this. Because I was just like, my ego had done the swing in the other direction where before it was like, this is so important, I'm so important, whatever fucking shit, to now like, I don't want anything to do with it, go away, which we also do. And I was just like, after that conversation, I was like, I think that Max was sort of like opening the door and being like, hey, do you want to come back out? I think he was saying like, hey, uh, you know, it was like he was the way the universe was coming through and being like, I think that you need to come back. Um, and so to be quite honest, like my human or like whoever has been running the ship for a long time is not really here. Like she actually doesn't want to do. I think it's so funny. My teacher talks about this. Like she doesn't really want to do this, but she got called and she's here to serve. And in that way, it's perfect because then all of the shit is out of the way. So I can just give the full transmission without any of the like anything else. It's just like the thing. And then we move on and then I'm going to go like wash my dishes later and finish my laundry. So it's all part of being human. So, so being a responsible priestess means first being like, oh, I have this. I have this. Um, and here, this is the karma 2 of priestesshood. If anyone wants to like feel better, sometimes understanding karmic patterns really like gives me like, oh, okay, I'm not crazy. Because one of the patterns of priestesshood is that you will initiate lots of men who you think are going to be your partner and they don't end up being your partner. They're just men you have to priestess as part of your initiation. And no, it sucks. I mean, okay, it has benefits. I will say that like it's wonderful having a magical pussy. You know? Like I love it. I love, and this is totally my ego. It's like, oh yeah, I love like just blowing a man's mind and just like changing his life with just my pussy, like and like, couple of hot dates. Um But on the other end, it's like, we have to understand that sometimes we've agreed to things in former lifetimes that we don't need to do anymore. And so, for me, I was like, man, I could just priestess my whole fucking life. Like I could make this my whole career and like just keep doing it and like be single. Like all of the women in my family have been single. I know how to do it. It's like, and I've really just accepted that I could do that. And I've actually had to turn towards my karmic contracts and be like, yeah, we're not doing that again. So now men get sent to me and I'm like, no, it's not enough payment for me. Like it's not enough. Like I'm not getting enough out of it. I don't do that shit for free anymore. Like, and I'm not gonna like prostitute myself, but like there's like when a man comes into my life, I have to be like, okay, obviously I'm supposed to priestess this man. And do I want to do that? You know, like, does that feel good for my woman? Because my woman really wants a man. Like my woman wants a man, like a full man, like not a man who needs my healing, not a man who requires my priestesshood, but a man who, you know, you're always going to priestess your partner. It's just that is who you are. But like the partnership is very different than like someone coming in for you to just like work with and they go off in their own world. I this has really landed for me. I felt so bad about this guy that I had sort of ditched. And I ditched him at first because he had like an entity attachment. And I was like, you know, I just can't sleep with your entity. It's like, and I told him like very lovingly and gently, like, you know, and I did work with him and I didn't know I was working with him. I didn't know I was doing this thing with him, but I was. And then like I felt so bad for so many years. And then I contacted him and I don't know why. I was just like going through my relationship chronology. Um, and was like, you know, I'm just gonna reach out and kind of like make amends. And this man is like, oh yeah, like after we parted, like I started my own company and like now I'm engaged. Like I was like, why am I giving myself such a hard time for years when this man is like, you know, like look, you know? Um, and so it was like, oh yeah, of course. Like, why am I surprised? It's like, yeah, because that's it. Like, and it really has nothing to do with me, right? It's the energy, it's the codes, it's the contract, and then my human is like, wait, I thought we were in a relationship, you know? Like, like fuck, man, I thought we were like doing something, you know? And then also the thing about priestesshood is that there are going to be many men who like want to engage with you. And it's like, oh, like there's creative potential here. You know, like I have the capability as a woman to have relationships with multiple men. Do I want to have a relationship, like sexual relationship with multiple men? I don't think so. It sounds like a lot of fucking work. But I have the ability to have allyship with so many men. Like there's a lot of men who I could call like right now to fix some shit in my house. And actually took me a long time to ask for help. And I finally got someone to fix my sinks after like a year of just like wallowing and being like, my apartment, just being like a brat about it. And I was just like, oh, I'm just gonna like call someone that I know on like my list of like 10 men that could fix my sink. So it's like when we're in this paradigm that we're given of like feminism, right? It's like, and honestly, like what's interesting is like, yeah, those things happened in history, but like the whole reason they were able to happen was because of other women. Like if you like read about one of my favorite terms, I'm really into like words too, like the etymology of words. And one of my favorite words that people don't know the origins of is gossip. The word gossip in its origins means like a woman who is your fucking like bitch. Like she is the woman like you are like glue. Like you are mended together. Your gossip is the women who you go to tell to get advice from, to get feedback from, to admit your deepest secrets. I mean, like your gossip is, I mean, when I feel into the energetics of the word, it is so sacred. And now what does the word gossip mean? The word gossip means um to talk poorly about someone, right? To degrade them, to ruin their reputation, right? It has a lot of negative connotations. And why is that? Well, when really the energy of um the sort of the witch trials, right? Like the burning of witches, women would rat each other out so that they didn't get burned. And so women learn to find power in like masculine protection or like, the safety of that. And they would save themselves and then so that their sisters would get burned. And this is a pattern in like history. And so, not to say that, okay, yes, like it's a survival mechanism. We can say like, we can have compassion for that, but we can't like pretend like that this men just did this shit by themselves. Women are the only way that anything can exist on a social level is if women accept it. We have to become the filters for consciousness. We have to become the filters for what is a yes and a no on this planet. It's kind of like if like I always think about it like as if like there's like a board of directors and like they bring down some kind of bill and it's like, okay, you will now do this. And I'm like, I do not pass that bill. I do not pass that bill. Like, no. So like anytime someone tries to give me a paradigm or belief system or some sort of thing that I just know isn't true or it's not of service or it's like, okay, that may be true, but it's not actually going to create the things we want in the world. Or like a factual thing. Okay, yes, like men did this, great. Okay, we know that. Men are this. Okay, great. But like, what is it actually creating in the world? Um, and so I'm really slow, guys. If at any point you cannot hear me, please let me know. Okay, good. Please do not ever be that person who tries to be polite and then does not tell me that there's, something on my face. Um, so shit. What did I do? I'm just trying to change my view because all I can see is Alexandra and I want to be able to see everyone else. Okay, there we go. So, so like to actually take responsibility for that priestess role is to understand our relationship and our sort of service. Like if you think about it, like a political someone who is like the mayor, right? Or someone who is the I don't know, has some service position in the community. Like in my community, a lot of the people who are on like these boards and things and who do community, what do you call it? Basically, we don't have a lot of like career politicians where I live. It's a small town, like a lot of people have other careers and things that they've done. So there's this real purity of service in a lot of what I see. Not everyone, there's still shady politics, but there is this like level of service that is so beautiful and pure in politics. And something that I really noticed is like whenever women talk about priestessing, they think it's like, I don't know, in the forest somewhere. Like, and I'm like, no, like we used to run entire cities and like that's what we did and we still can, but we forgot that we did that. And so um the it's not priestessing is not like some fairy thing. It's like a very real embodied thing that it exists in a very social, I mean, it can exist in many different spaces, but it's not like over here. Do you know what I mean? Like it's on the ground. It's part of culture. It's part of creation. And I'm really interested, like I did this swing for a while and like I mean, I did a really big swing, guys. I went from like working in this like sales company and like a top sales rep. And I went to Burning Man, which is like so cliche, but I went to Burning Man and I had this like whole experience. I did way too many drugs. I had sex with like so many people in like 5 days. It was stupid. I was like 21 years old. So I was just like full out. But then I like came home. I didn't even quit my sales job. This is how irresponsible I was. But I was also like so resentful of my boss, my manager. So, it was nuanced. But anyway, I just ran off. I just took my car. I thought it was going to be gone for like a week. I ended up going for 3 months and just living like by the Yuba River and like in the Wenatchee Forest, and it's just like hanging out with all types of travelers and just unraveling the entirety of who I thought I was. But you know, I went through that period of like, the thing that I am can't exist in this world, so I need to separate myself completely, right? Like I need to make a full break. And I think sometimes we actually have to do that to like gather information. It's like I had to go to Taiwan to like gather all this information. But I've really come to understand that like we have this idea that like because our culture is so fucked up that we just need to like throw away the entire culture. And it's like, no, actually, it's your responsibility to take yourself into the culture and build roots and build a fucking temple wherever you are, whatever that temple is in service to. You have to build your temple in the middle of the fucking crazy, you know, shit. And you know, I've had this thought because I live in this little town in New Mexico, and I'm like, you know, should I be like in New York City? Because I don't know, like there's a lot of energy. I don't know, there might be a witch hunt. I don't think so. But like, you know, wherever you are, it's like there's the temple, right? Like it doesn't matter. Like you can be in the middle of the city, you can be in the middle of the forest, wherever it is, but you don't have to like, you don't have to. Some people will, but it's like this, there becomes this idealization of like being out in nature and being like a survivalist. And I've met people who are like so stuck. Like I met this man who super, super sweet, but I sort of felt the vibe from him immediately. He had like, you know, the tattoos and, you know, those stuff. And I was talking to him and I was like, you know, he was talking about moving to Silver City maybe, and maybe he would stay in Moab. And I was like, well, where is the land calling you? You know, like, because like for me, I got called to the land here. I'm not here for the people. And he's like, oh, the land that I'm from hasn't existed since the Cain's tribe took over, or whatever the story is about Cain and Abel. And like, you know, humans are too fucked up for me. This culture is so bad that it's like this egoic thing. It's like the culture is so bad that I need to remove myself from it. It's like, well, you can, you know, it's like mold. It's like, okay, you can like do your best to like create some boundaries, but mold is going to exist everywhere. And so you you have to learn the download, whatever it is that you have to learn to bring that onto the planet. And, you know, aside from birthing children, you know, there's such a fixation on birthing children, but there's also, you know, for me, it was a hyperfixation on like having a business. My business was like what women go through when they want a baby. Like it was like obsessive. And it's like, but like in both of those, we forget that like it's not about creating a child. It's not about creating the thing. It's just about bringing this energy and anchoring it onto the planet. That's all. Like your job is to anchor whatever it is that you have onto the planet, and it's really not about you at all. Like you don't get to like, you know, and then what's really funny is now that I'm not obsessed with having a business, my woman can actually do things she wants to do, because that was what was happening is I was obsessed with my business and I felt resentful of myself. So some part of me was always rebelling and sabotaging, which I think is so funny now. So now it's like, oh, my woman can actually do what she wants to do, and maybe not right away, but she can start to develop like desires outside of having a business. Like, you know, I'm taking singing lessons from a friend, and I started doing Chinese again. You know, I started studying Chinese again. And yeah, Alexandra and I are both on our things about the languages and the cultures. So, and if you guys came in late, like you can still come on video. I still want to see your faces. It's fine. Like it's fine to just come in whenever, but don't be hiding back there. Bunch of hiders. Okay. Let's kind of see where we are at for a minute. Um, so, yeah, like when we can remember the history, when we can remember the story, then we can reorient to ourselves on like a large scale. Like if you don't know that you're, the story of the ugly duckling, it's like if you don't know that you are a swan and you're in a gaggle of ducks, you're gonna be like, well, something's wrong with me. And it's like, well, you just have to reorient to the fact that you are a swan around ducks. And like now it's your job to become a swan. Well, and you don't make that mean anything about you. You're not better than anything or anyone. You just recognize I'm a swan and I have to like figure out how to be a swan and find my swan family and live in my swan environment, right? Like that's it. And so when you reorient to on a like a not even historical, but like a mythologically cosmology, like that level, well, then we can fucking figure it out, right? I think the story is sort of like the map. That's why I think that stories for like most cultures are just so significant, right? And I always think about what stories are being told. Like whenever I watch a Netflix show or something, I'm always watching like what's the undercurrent of the story that's being told? What am I actually being told here, right? It's really warped. Like our current stories are really warped in this way. It's like there's the actual meaning is really hidden underneath, and that's why it becomes like propaganda to me, because I'm like, oh, so that's what you're communicating, okay. Whereas when we talk about cosmological stories, it's like all of the information comes to you. It's so clear, and you're like, I see it, I see it. And then you're like translating the things that you know in your body. It's very different than being programmed, right? And you can actually tell when you're being programmed. So side note, you can like feel it in your third eye. I mean, it's like always like I always get like a hard density right here whenever I feel like there's like things coming at me, rather than like truth being transmitted and like my body's like lights up, right? Or gets hot or whatever it is. So more on that later. So I want to go around. I'm gonna stop the recording now, and this will be up on YouTube, and maybe it'll be on YouTube. Someone said that I'll do something else on YouTube, because I feel like this is more of like, I'll just do that as a separate thing. But I am going to be posting this portion on social media, and then I'm going to stop recording, and then I'm going to give everyone an opportunity I'm going to like have a one-on-one with each of you here. So I was going to post this on social media, and I was like, today, like live, and I'm like, no, come. If you're here, great. If you're not, you missed it, and you can watch the replay later. Okay, so I pressed stop, right? I haven't done this before. I think I pressed stop to make sure it records. Does anyone know?
Yeah, there should be either a sign, I don't recall, either a sign that says stop recording or something like that. Like when there's the play and the stop sign.
But it will save it if I do that, right?
Yeah, it will say that you're saving it on your cloud or something like